Welcome to Zen Money Monday. I'm Liz Lajoie, the Zen Money CFO, and today I'm so excited to share with you our guest, Leah Carver. Leah is a wonderful resource and health coach, and I'm going to let you explain what you do because it crosses the barriers. But what I want to talk with Leah today about is really, what do we do as entrepreneurs when our body can't keep up? This is really Leah's zone of genius, and so I wanted her to join our conversation around how we build your business from the inside out and how we sustain ourselves in that process.
Such a good conversation. I'm so excited to be here and have it. So, I guess that's exactly what I do is I help people understand that they are their best asset when it comes to their business. And that asset is something that they want to learn how to take care of and fuel and build so that they can have a successful business that feels really good, right? As opposed to abusing the asset until, it just can't function anymore.
Why do you think it's so easy for us to disregard ourselves as an asset physically?
Well, it's funny because I was actually having this conversation with one of my coaching clients this morning, and she said, gosh, I just keep hearing this idea that I don't have time for this. And that's a story that's just so easy to believe, right? I think that we're trained for a long time that the external or the demands that are being put on us are more important than what we're feeling inside. And so we learn how to kind of quash what it is that we need and just take care of whatever needs taken care of. So a lot of it's unlearning.
And in the work that you do, what do you, before we get into how to not do this to ourselves, what is the biggest issue you see because you work with a lot of people who are business owners and entrepreneurs, and you've built multiple businesses yourself and have also dealt with health issues, both for yourself and obviously deeply with your clients. What is the biggest issue that comes up around this, and why do we do this to ourselves?
Oh, I think there's a few, but one of them is that as entrepreneurs, we are really smart. Like, we're typically intelligent people, and we are really good at excuses. We don't realize that they're excuses, but it's like, oh, but no, I need to do this. And we just see the value in the things that we need to do, as opposed to really learning that when we build our own capacity, when we take care of ourselves, we are actually building our business. And so it's reframing everything from being an external to internal to more of an internal to external. So it's literally like flipping everything upside down.
I really like that. And you know that I like that because you and I have talked in other places around the parallel between our physical well-being and how well we take care of ourselves, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, sort of the whole package, but the parallel between that and how we actually take care of our business, either through the financial lens or kind of behind the scenes stuff. And I'm so fascinated by this because we are all taught societally to always pay attention to what's going on outside of us first and foremost, which is exactly what you're saying. And we do it in our business too, where it's the go get the sales, figure out how to bring in more leads, how do we promote ourselves and market ourselves and have this external face. And the reality is there can be just a shit show going on behind the scenes that nobody sees. And then we're stuck in this, okay, externally it looks great, but internally it's really chaotic. And then that creates so much more stress too.
Yeah, so I like to say, one of my taglines or whatever is building a lifestyle that supports you instead of a lifestyle you support. Because it is so often that things might look great on the outside. People might look at your life and be like, wow, you're amazing. Look at all these things. But on the inside, there's this just storm of pain and stress and just real stuff going on. And so it's really hard to want to kind of do the work when everything looks okay on the outside. As long as we can keep it together, as long as everybody believes the story that we're selling, then we're kind of willing to stay with that. And it's only when we start to fall apart a little bit, when we're like, I just can't sustain this story, that we're willing to kind of do the other work.
That was certainly true for me.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, between the two of us, we have quite a lot of chronic illness stuff that cropped up. And I think that's true for a lot of people. A lot of people I talk to are aware that they're under stress and aware that they're constantly running on adrenaline, whatever version of that, however they phrase it for themselves. But it's so hard to stop until you actually hit the wall. And it's just such a tragedy because there's so many smart, talented people out there who are literally driving themselves to illness before they get a wake-up call that says, oh, wait, I need to do this differently.
Yeah, and I think it's, especially for women, it's happening more and more and more because we are kind of this first generation of women that we've been taught that we can have it all. We can have the career, we can have the family, we can have everything. And, the truth is, like, we can't have everything. We can have whatever we kind of want, but we can't do it all. And when we try to do it all is when we kind of lose our footing, I think. And so it's just starting to get clear about what you actually want as opposed to what we think we're supposed to be doing or what we think we should do or what a successful life looks like to society.
How do you really tease that back and make that transition? Because I would imagine, in fact, I know that most people would say, well, I want the dream. I want what everyone's told me. Of course I want that, and I can still keep going. Why should they stop and really reconsider?
I mean, for me, it's all about, are you lying to yourself, right? Like, do you have what everybody thinks is amazing, and yet you're just not content, you're not happy, you feel stressed, you feel, like if you feel like unfulfilled, or it's like there's no fun, there's no joy in your life, then I think that's a really good reason to just stop and be like, why are you doing what you're doing? Like, what's the point? And kind of come back to self a little bit, like, and what it is that you're here to do. Why am I here, and what am I really here for?
I think we're often trained to think that it's the next step, right? Like, I will be happy when I achieve A, and then you reach A, and you're still not really content or feeling really, I don't know what word we want to use here, grounded or, just in love with your life. It's oh wait, I've reached A, I'm still not in love with my life. It must be that I need to reach B now.
Right.
And so it's a stepping stone model that is, again, very externally focused, which you can do great things in that. But part of the reason I wanted you to come on today is because I think this conversation for me is very personal. I know it is for you, but I did that for a long time. And then I got really, really sick, and I thought my life was falling apart because it kind of was, but really it had to do that. It had to fall apart at that level for me to really decide, wait, I need to put a stop on here. I really have to look at what my priorities are, because I've been just spinning on this wheel thinking that this was the thing you did. But it wasn't fulfilling, not really. And it wasn't what I was supposed to be doing at the end of the day. And it's such an important conversation because we drive and drive and drive and drive and drive. And the end result of all of that stress is massive illness. We see it all the time.
Yeah, we do. And, stress is, I've always said and been taught by my teachers that stress is 80% the cause of disease. And so if we're learning from the time that, we're little, that, okay, A plus B equals C, A plus B equals C, and we keep doing the things, and then we're getting to that next level and we're not feeling fulfilled, then it is time to just be like, let me reevaluate and see how I can not necessarily like change my whole life, but it can be really small tweaks. Like it can be small things. It doesn't have to be giant things. It can be those small daily practices. I love the word practices because we can fail and that's okay. You know, it allows you to, you know, just have a practice that support you and remind you of really what your deep intention is, right? So we can get so caught up, and that's one of the things with stress, is it will make us get caught up in survival. So we're just like doing the things and we kind of lose sight of why, you know, and it might be, you know, we might be like, oh, I'm making money, this is great, but that's not necessarily a reason to do things, right? It's like after a while that can become meaningless in a way, right? And so it's not just the money, it's like, how am I feeling fulfilled on a soul level, on a deeper level?
Right. It's never really truly just about the money. The money is our tool to be able to affect change for ourselves, for our families, at a greater capacity in our communities. I mean, for me, that's what Zen Money is really all about. It's not about the actual, I mean, we want to be able to get you the resources you want as an entrepreneur to be able to do the big things in your life. But the end goal isn't just to have a pot of gold under your desk. Right? The end goal is to have some plan for that so that you can have the impact that you want to have in life. And I think, you know, how we treat ourselves is a piece of that puzzle too. The end goal isn't just to be able to do all of these external things. The end goal is, you know, to not be sick, to enjoy our lives, to spend time with our kids, presumably, right? All of these things that as entrepreneurs, we're constantly feeling like we're juggling.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is finding balance. And, you know, the thing that is common among all of those things, our business, our kids, our families, our passions, you know, it's us. And so it's like, if we're not, and it's just so funny how we can think that we're not important in that equation. And yet we're like the only important thing in that equation, really, because without us, there is no equation.
So what are some things that our audience might be able to start thinking about if somebody has been feeling overwhelmed and overloaded as a business owner or new entrepreneur, not so new entrepreneur, and, you know, doesn't really know where to start? Like, what's the first thing that you like to work with people around?
Whew. Okay. So, I mean, there's a couple things, but I think some of the most important thing is just starting to see the pattern, you know, and I know you know this with money as well. You teach this all the time, right? It's like the way you are with money doesn't change if you have $100 or $1 million. Like it's habituation, right? And it's like that's how we are with ourselves. So we are always saying, I don't have time to take care of myself, for example. That will never change unless you decide to make time for yourself. Right? It's just one of those things. It's like a habituation. You will never have time. You will never get to a place where all of a sudden you're like, oh, I have time for me today. You know, more, I mean, you might have that occasionally, but it's not going to be a consistent thing unless you decide that that is an absolute. Like, I'm going to take some time for me. So that's the first thing, is start noticing the stories that you're telling yourself a little bit and call your bluff, you know?
How is the work that you do different from, I don't know, our bigger general concept around self-care? I mean, I think a lot of people think like, I just need to go and like get a massage or, you know, get to bed a little bit earlier and everything will be okay.
Yeah. So one of the things about self-care is that people see it as like pampering, or they see it as luxury, or they, you know, it's kind of like an occasional thing or treat. And so I've kind of stopped using the word self-care to some degree because it really doesn't define it. How it's different is, for example, do you consider brushing your teeth self-care? Yeah, but it's not like luxury or pampering. It's just something you do every day because you wouldn't leave the house without brushing your teeth, right? So the work that I do is about really helping people, you know, take some more time throughout their day to have other practices other than brushing their teeth that are that at that level of like, I'm just going to do this every day.
Yeah. What I like about it too, and this concept that we're either, and this is where it ties into the money conversation too, is I think, we're either in stress mode physically, where, our body is constantly in, I'm going to put all the blood to my appendages so I can run away from the bear, which still, what's the word I'm looking for? Stifles really our opportunity for growth. So we can either be in that mode, stress mode, or we can be in, and relaxed isn't even really the right word. It's just like but a much more open, kind of restful space. And that's where growth really happens. So for me, the parallel here is that, one, we need our bodies to be as strong and resilient and at ease so that we can grow as possible, right? And that doesn't just mean working out 7 days a week. That means having other versions of self-care. We don't like that term. We need a different term, right? That will continue to support all areas of us as a person. But also, it's the same idea. Like, do we want to grow and create and expand, or do we want to be based in this stress-related, fear-based model around our physical, around our environment and how we perceive our environment, whether that's how we deal with ourselves physically or how we deal with our money and our businesses in general. I just think that's really what it comes down to. Do we want to grow and expand healthily, or do we want to constantly be in fear-based mode?
Yeah. And so, a lot of what I really try to help people do is create stability. Now, stability isn't like a really juicy word, right? It's not like, ooh, stability.
Neither is finance.
Yeah. But I often equate it to, if we were to look at life as a roller coaster, and people get in line to get on a roller coaster, right? Like, we kind of like wild rides. But you don't want to get on the ride without a seatbelt, because that would just be silly. And so the practices, like creating stability, is like your seatbelt. That's so that you can be in the chaos of life, because life is pretty chaotic. There's, especially as entrepreneurs, there's always things coming at you. There's always fires to put out. But instead of being in stress response, you're like, oh, I'm secure, I'm seatbelted in, and I can actually come from a place of mindfulness and presence and show up without being completely thrown around,
Mm.
And that's kind of the point.
I love that visual because it's so clear, right? And it's so easy to say, of course, I wouldn't drive my car 75 miles an hour down the freeway without my seatbelt on.
Right.
Why on earth am I trying to drive my life in that way?
Yeah. And so we're the anchor for everything, right? And if you want to anchor in a storm or in calm seas, you want to make sure that your anchor is grounded in. You want to make sure that you're not going anywhere when you take your eyes off the mark for a moment, right? And so everything is about recognizing who you actually are, right? What it is that you want to create, and how you can use practice to support being your strongest, most stable, and fulfilled self.
I love that. My next question was going to be, what does Zen money mean to you? But I think you just answered it.
Yeah, basically, right? Zen money to me is all about having the means to drive your purpose and do it in a way that feels really good, as opposed to stress.
Right. Let's reduce the stress. All right. One takeaway you would like everyone to leave with today.
One takeaway. I don't know if we've even talked about this, but one thing I would like to share with everybody is your breath is a great insight into what's happening inside. So just take a moment and see what your breath is telling you. If you're breathing really shallow, or if you find yourself sighing a lot, or if you find yourself kind of taking big gasps of air, it might be indicative that there's some stress going on.
Yeah. That's good to know. So everyone take a deep breath and just relax and pay attention.
Yeah, just notice what your breath's doing.
You'll probably find yourself doing it throughout the rest of the day now that you've heard Leah talk about it. But it's an important piece of your biological puzzle.
Yeah.
So it's important to know.
And it's a great way to, so if you close your eyes, just to take a moment here, if you were to close your eyes and I said, don't think about anything, chances are your mind would start like reeling 100 miles an hour, right? And if I was like, but try and get your mind not to think, it would go faster. You'd be like, why can't I think? I have these things to think about. But if instead we use something like the breath as a tool, right, to actually quiet the mind. So instead of me telling you to stop your mind from thinking, I tell you to slow down your breath and inhale and exhale with the same tempo and inhale for the same count as the exhale. All of a sudden you can get your mind to stop. Right? So it's really, I guess what I do is I really teach people the tools to access some of that subconscious stuff without trying to kind of struggle through it.
And you have a wide variety of background. We didn't get into this in the beginning, but you are practiced in Ayurvedic and in deep into yoga. And so you do a very beautiful bridge between the practical, I think, I'm going to just give you this little spiel right now, between the practical around what is actually actively happening in our bodies in a positive way, in a negative way, how to manage all of that, but then also this bridge to the bigger piece of, the spiritual side, and why are we not focusing on this massive part of our lives that can actually help support all the other things externally we want to do in our lives.
Yeah, and I think that you just said it. I mean, to me, it's like everything is about getting to that spiritual side to some degree. Like all of life is about, helping us to access. And when I say spiritual, I mean just knowing yourself, knowing the divine within you, knowing the goodness of you, and really letting that be what guides your life as opposed to what you were taught.
I love it. So if anyone wants to get in touch with you and hear more about what you've got going on, how can they find you?
So best way is just to email me, Leah at leahcarver.com. So it's Leah, Leah at Leah Carver, CARVER.com. Or find me on Facebook, which is just Leah Carver.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining our Zen Money Monday conversation. I think this is such an important piece of the puzzle because we all know that I can geek out on all of the businessy, ticky-tacky stuff, but this is so critical to all of our success. So thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.